Good evening. It's now 6:30 and I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda tonight is announcements. A joint workshop with the Planning Commission will be held on Monday, November 8th at 5 p.m. for a panel discussion with the Urban Land Institute to discuss affordable housing. Carver County CDA will also present an overview of affordable housing trends in Carver County and specifically in Victoria. The council will hold its next budget workshop on Monday, November 22nd at 5 p.m. to discuss capital projects and the city's 5-year capital improvement plan. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in the council chambers at City Hall, unless otherwise noted. We encourage anyone who wants to attend our City Council meeting and workshops in person to contact our city clerk in advance so we can ensure physical distancing can be maintained. In other announcements, the Victoria Business Owners Association and our downtown businesses are hosting a trick-or-treat event in downtown Victoria on Saturday, October 30th. The fun starts at 1 p.m. November 2nd is Election Day for some school districts. We encourage people in Victoria to get out and vote. The city will be hosting a mini fall festival on November 2nd from 5 to 8 at Bayfront Park. This year we encourage everyone to recycle your pumpkins, so come on out with your entire family. Bring your pumpkins and stay for a family-friendly movie. We'll be showing Disney and Tim Burton's Nightmare Before Christmas, and the movie starts at 6:30. The City and Victoria Business Association are partnering this year on a winter lighting celebration. We invite everyone to come down to Bayfront Park from 6 to 7 on Thursday, December 2nd to help us light up Victoria and ring in the holiday season. And just to clarify, Cindy, there's only one polling location this year, correct? And that's at the Field House.
For Victoria. Right?
For Victoria. Okay, terrific. Thank you. With that, we have no proclamations this evening, so we're on to our next order of business, which is to adopt the final agenda. Council, is there a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to our next item, and that is open forum. It's the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application to come before the council at a future date. We don't have anyone registered to speak this evening, so if there's anyone from the public who wishes to address the council, please make yourself known. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and don't require deliberation or housekeeping items required by law. Consent agenda items are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff have any items to pull from the consent agenda?
Mayor, members of the council, staff would like to pull 3 items this evening. 513, the well house number 5 pump house and connecting water main. 514, Steiger Lake Lane West Street and utility improvements, and 515, Highway 11 improvements, the JPA and professional services.
Terrific. We will pull those 3 items. Council, any items that you would like to see pulled for a separate discussion? Or members of the audience? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to see items pulled? Ms. Patno, please let the record reflect that items 5.13, 5.14, and 5.15 have all been pulled for further discussion. Council, may I have a motion for the balance of the consent agenda, please?
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's move to those items that were removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion. First up is item 5.13, well number 5, pump house and connecting water main. Ms. Hardy.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This evening, in just a moment here, I'll pass it over to our city engineer, Geheren, who will go through in more detail all 3 items. The reason for pulling these items is just to draw some more attention to the 3 items that we're asking for you to act on this evening. Some of these items we've talked about, all of these items fit our consent agenda policy, but we've talked about them at, in pieces here and there, or it's been a while since we've talked to them. So we just wanted, we don't have any issues from a staff perspective, but we just wanted to, from a transparency perspective, pull those items and draw some attention and highlight a few things for our residents and anyone who may be watching us this evening. So on that note, I will pass it over to City Engineer Ms. Geheren to highlight each of the 3 items for us.
Thank you. Ms. Geheren, please.
Great. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'm going to cover one at a time so you can act on them accordingly. I don't intend to go into a great bit of detail, but certainly if there's questions, we could talk about those questions. The first one, what we're looking for is authorization for professional services for well number 5, including the pump house that would be associated with the well and the connecting water main that would connect the well and pump house to the water system. This is part of that overall South Area Utility Extension project, broader project that we've been working through. So you've already authorized the sanitary sewer lift station, which is in construction, as well as extension of sewer and water to the area. But well number 5 is needed long-term to serve the South Growth area. So we need to get going on that process. This is the culmination of a well siting study that started a couple of years ago. So this is the next step of that process, and it does take quite some time before this well would be online. We'd be looking at 1 to 2 years from the time at which we start to authorize this next phase of work. So with that, I would take any questions. Otherwise, I did identify the motion that staff was included in your packet.
All right, terrific. Thank you. Council, any questions for Ms. Geheren or Ms. Hardy?
I just have one.
Councilmember Black.
Thank you. Will this one well be able to accommodate the whole south area?
So the South Growth area, the comprehensive plan calls for 4 wells in the South Growth area, as well as water treatment plant number 2 and additional water storage facility. So this is just the first of much expansion in the South area.
Okay.
Terrific. Thank you. Councilmember Black, anything else? No. Council, anything else? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion.
Motion for authorization of Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. to provide professional services for well number 5, pump house and connecting water main with an estimated total fee of $237,132.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 5.14, Steiger Lake Lane West Street and Utility Improvements. Ms. Hardy, do you have anything to add on this one?
I will pass it right over to Kara.
Perfect. Ms. Geheren, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This next infrastructure project, again, we're looking for authorization for professional services. And this is really just a piece of a very big puzzle that you all have been working on related to the Downtown West development in the 13.5 acres. And with the signing of a preliminary development agreement, staff is now recommending that we move forward with focusing on the city's share of that project. That's not even quite the right way to say it, but the existing Steiger Lake Lane from the bridge. So here's the condo building, the bridge over on the east side of my picture here. This existing Steiger Lake Lane is in need of being reconstructed as part of implementing the city's vision for connecting the existing part of downtown to the 13.5 acres. So back in 2018, some preliminary design work was completed looking at what that road would preliminarily look like. In general, the intent is to reconstruct the existing street to have a similar feel as what exists for the rest of downtown. So same roadway width. We'll take a close look at parking on one or both sides of the street. Preliminarily, the 2018 work identified parking on the park side of the street. And then looking at adding parking on the non-park side of the street down the road if those properties on that side of the street were to redevelop. So this engineering services will start with a preliminary design phase where we'll take a look at all of those improvements and preliminary costs, and that information will then be presented back to the City Council before we move on to final design and the next phases of the project. Public engagement will occur in accordance with this, with the adjacent property owners, of course, and then anyone else who might be interested in attending sessions that we might have on it. So just to also note, we have also talked about burying the overhead power lines that run through this area. So we've been trying to get Excel to give us an initial statement of work. We have not been successful in receiving that yet, but it elevated a level, so I'm hoping we get some responsiveness on that piece. But that'll come through then in conjunction with this work.
All right.
And that is what we're looking for on this one, unless Marty or Dana have anything to add.
Staff, anything further from you? Just a quick question. This is not redoing any of that preliminary study. It's just picking it up from where we left it off.
Correct.
Correct. Yes. Wonderful. Okay, Council, any further discussion? Questions? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to authorize Kimley Horn to provide professional services for the Steiger Lake Lane West Street and utility improvements project with an estimated total fee of $149,800.
Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second. I beat you.
All right. The winner of the second goes to Councilmember Hebert. Is there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, 5.15, Highway 11 improvements and the Joint Powers Agreement and professional services. And I'm assuming we're going to kick this right over to Ms. Geheren again. So, Ms. Geheren, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This one we've talked about more recently. So with the approval of the Huntersbrook development and the preliminary plat approval of the Welter property, Marsh Hollow is its new name.
What is it called?
Marsh Hollow. Okay. We do need to proceed with the planned improvements to Highway 11 that were identified in the corridor study that the City Council approved back in 2020. This is going to be a joint venture with the county, so this is a county road, but because of some staffing challenges on their side, they have asked the city to lead the design work for this project. And so we would be entering into a joint powers agreement that would share responsibility for the cost associated with the improvements in accordance with the county's development-driven cost participation policy. In addition, the developers of these parcels will also be cost participating in the project. So the development agreement that's already executed for Huntersbrook has them sharing in the cost of this work. And then we anticipate the same requirement in the final approvals for the Welter property. So the project specifically runs from the railroad tracks up through the development parcels, so up and probably somewhat adjacent into the Schmeig's property on the north end of this project limit. And we are looking at adding a median and then putting in a full access intersection for one of the access points to the development and a limited access intersection for the second. This was all vetted and set in place with the corridor study that the council already approved. But what we wanted to do as part of the preliminary design work, so the intersection of Marsh Lake Road and County Road 11 and County Road 14, when we were doing the Marsh Lake Road improvement project as a future county road, we had been envisioning a roundabout at that intersection. But when the city made the decision to proceed with simply doing a improvement in place, not expansion for the county road, the roundabout wasn't a part of that project scope anymore. So with this preliminary design work for the Highway 11 improvements, we've included elements in the consultant's contract the request to the consultant to really do an updated analysis of that intersection to help us figure out if now is the right time to build that roundabout. With traffic increasing in that area, there's been some, what we believe, an uptick in crashes at that intersection. So we have the consultant doing both a safety analysis of the existing condition and then re-looking at the traffic projections and giving us updated information as to when the intersection would meet warrants for the roundabout. That piece is important because that ties back to the funding. If we were to go and say we want to put in a roundabout today, but it doesn't meet warrants in the next 20 years, the county would be expecting us to 100% fund that roundabout. Where if it meets warrants, then it triggers the county's participation in those costs, which in this case is important. 3 of the legs are currently county roads. The 4th leg is a future county road. Certainly we'd want to understand what their participation in the funding would be. And they're open to moving forward with it, but we need to understand the implications of the policy and who would pay for it. We also tasked the consultant, though, with identifying any interim safety improvements that might be able to be implemented, relatively quickly. So that work is proposed to occur concurrently with the design detailed work for the other part of the corridor. If we get through that preliminary work for the roundabout and we decide really the roundabout should be built as part of this project, then we would want to add that into the overall scope of what would get built. This is likely a 2022 construction project or a 2023 construction project if the roundabout becomes a factor. Because with the roundabout, we'd be looking at some additional property acquisition, which just takes some time to go through. So we're looking forward to getting this kicked off so we can get to work on being able to answer those questions. Next year, the council will also be looking at the connection of Linden? What's it called? Why am I trying to blank on Timber Terrace? So Timber Terrace in the Laketown neighborhood. We've also talked about making that connection to Marsh Lake Road. That's in the budget for 2022. There's a lot of interest by the people moving into the Laketown neighborhood to see that connection implemented. So we'll want to factor that connection into this analysis because certainly once that connection's in, I think we'll see even more traffic at this intersection. So those pieces all fit together hand in hand. What we're asking for tonight would be approval of the joint powers agreement. And I do want to note that there's a couple of outstanding minor revisions that we're waiting for feedback back from the county that they're agreeable. Preliminarily, they thought they didn't have any concerns. One area we just have to work through is in the development-driven cost participation policy, the city is responsible for right-of-way acquisition, and that's the way the agreement is written. But what that is speaking to is really the right-of-way that we acquired already from the Hunters Brook development and will be acquiring through platting from the Welter property. When you dive into the policy, there is some flexibility once we get outside of the areas that are going to be platted. So let's say we need something for some reason outside of those platted properties. We want to make sure that the agreement reflects that flexibility that's in the county's policy for us to work through that when we know what the actual easement acquisition needs are. We aren't aware of any yet outside of the plats that we'll already be receiving, but that's something we're working on. So the county won't take action on this until November 16th, but with the agenda on the 8th with the ULI workshop and everything, we thought it best to get this in front of the city council tonight since it was going to be a slightly longer presentation than the other two. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Terrific. Thank you. Ms. Geheren, do we know, or is it part of the scope of this to understand if Marsh Lake Road is going to be able to handle the traffic that's upcoming? Because currently it is the only city leg on the county road system there. But is that going to be part of our study, is to understand,
That is not, unless that would be something that the council wants to revisit. The county's understanding is that the city isn't interested in that being a county road anytime soon based on previous council action.
Okay.
But we will learn some information about the traffic, certainly at the east end of it through this process.
Okay, thank you. Council, questions? Ms.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking quietly. I'm just, when they decide warrants on roundabouts, is that an either or with roundabout or lights, traffic lights?
So in this particular situation, all the previous work has identified that as a roundabout, so we aren't at the moment discussing an alternative to that. Now, it's entirely possible through the technical work that the engineers on the project may say, maybe you should look at this, but that's not what's been in the city's vision or the county's vision for the intersection. So at this point, that's not something we're considering. But if the council would want us to be looking at a signalized alternative, that's certainly something we could add in the scope.
Well, I think it needs something. We can't just say, well, it doesn't warrant a roundabout and let it stay the way it is. I think with all the accidents that we've had at that intersection that we need to do something.
Yeah, but those safety improvements or alternative safeties improvements are going to be part of the scope.
Correct. And certainly we can talk through with the consultant about signalization as an option, certainly. And that can be questions we can ask of them once they're in process without needing to make a big change at this point.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Council, any other questions? All right. With that, I will take a motion.
A motion for Highway 11 improvements, approval of the joint powers agreement, subject to final revisions as requested by the city attorney and reviewed by the city manager, and authorization of the Bolton and Mink Inc. to provide professional services for the Highway 11 improvements with an estimated total fee of $275,806.
Terrific. Thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to our regular agenda. We have just one item on our regular agenda this evening, item 6.1, the Shores of Marsh Lake Final Plat and related comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning. Presenting this evening is Community and Economic Development Director Marty Dahl. Mr. Dahl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just doing the musical chairs here.
Sure.
Yes, so Mayor, as you mentioned before you this evening is the final plat, comp plan amendment, and zoning for the Shores of Marsh Lake development proposed by Charles Cudd Company. Why is my slide not advancing? There we go. Just a little bit of background on the meetings that took place and actions that took place prior to this meeting. So way back in March, when this development was first being proposed, there was a neighborhood meeting held. Feedback was gathered that then moved into the sketch plat process where both the Planning Commission and City Council provided feedback. This parcel was outside of our existing city limits, but in July, the Minnesota Office of Administrative Hearings did approve annexation, so it is now within the city of Victoria. Just a couple of months ago in August, both the Planning Commission and City Council approved the preliminary plat, and then last week, Tuesday, the Planning Commission also recommended approval of the final plat, comp plan amendment, and zoning on a unanimous vote. So just a reminder of the area that we're talking about. This parcel is just south of Marsh Lake Road and east of County Road 43. It is just north of Marsh Lake, approximately 39 acres, which equates to 14.2 developable acres or 2.95 units per acre. Which is in line with what this parcel is guided for in the comp plan, which is low-density residential. There is proposed to be a total of 42 single-family lots on this property. The final plat was included in your packet, but here is just a look at the layout that is being proposed for the final plat, and we can come back to this graphic later if there are any questions. As also was noted in your background packet, the Planning Commission did review all of the conditions of preliminary plat approval. The Planning Commission did determine that those conditions have either been met or are to be met with conditions placed upon the final plat. As was noted and a little bit new to this development is the comprehensive plan amendment. So just a couple of weeks ago, we were notified by the Met Council that they were going to require a comp plan amendment based on the sewer staging map in our comp plan. So currently this parcel is located in the 2031 to 2040 sewer staging, and they have requested or told us that we needed to amend to put this in the 2021 to 2030 staging area. We had some discussion with them, spoke internally with the city attorney. I think staff and the attorney maintain that a comp plan amendment should not and is not required for this parcel based on some language that we have in the comp plan, but in effort to be timely with the development and the Met Council has to issue a sewer permit for this development. To not hold that up, we are moving forward with this comp plan amendment, although we do again maintain that it is not necessarily required. There are no issues with sewer capacity for these homes, so it's really a matter of changing a color on a map.
Marty, is that just an administrative change, or is there going to be some cost that goes along with it?
It should be. It's from our standpoint, it's just administrative. In fact, we've already preliminarily submitted all of the maps and information that were requested, and then we just would, if assuming council approval of this amendment tonight, need to send them our approval resolution, and then they have indicated on the Met Council side that it should be an administrative review of that amendment as well.
Is that going to hold anything up?
We're hopeful that it won't. As I mentioned, we were very adamant in our discussions with them that this needs to happen quickly. They've indicated that it's been expedited. They've had about a week and a half to review the materials. So we are cautiously optimistic that it's not going to create a delay.
Okay, terrific. Mr. Bose, is there anything we can do to encourage their expedition to process that expeditiously if it runs into a jam?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I mean, I think Marty and staff have sort of done that. So the answer is yes, but I think we've already done it. And what we've done is we've just said, we'll play in the sandbox nicely, but ultimately our view is that this isn't really required, so we'd like you to move it right along.
Terrific. Thank you. All right. Thanks.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dahl.
So the shores of Marsh Lake is it being proposed as a residential shoreland planned unit development. With that, the bulk regulations being proposed are a minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet, width of 65 feet, a minimum lot depth of 160 feet, 7.5 foot side yard setbacks on each side, 25-foot front yard setback. Majority of the development will have a 50-foot rear yard setback. There are two lots that do not have a buffer easement or the ordinary high water line setback for Marsh Lake, which will have a 30-foot rear yard setback, and then max impervious is 5,000 square feet per lot. Corner lots will meet the front yard setback of 25 feet street side. I believe there is only one. As we'll talk about in just a minute, there is a 100-foot riparian buffer that is to be deeded to the city as an outlot that will encompass the entire shoreline of Marsh Lake. Development-wide, the impervious surface is to be 18.8%, which meets the shoreland requirements of a minimum of 25% impervious surface. And then just slightly different from preliminary plat when you last reviewed this, a small outlot has been added up at the intersection of Lakeside Drive for a monument that will be owned by the HOA. You can see on this map there is a lot of outlot and natural area, shoreline in this development. The areas in blue are city-owned or will be city-owned outlots, while the areas in yellow will be retained either by the developer or the HOA. This small yellow dot right here is where that monument will be going. And then Outlot A is envisioned to be a private HOA-maintained park. I noted this is a residential shoreland PUD, and the final plat does appear to meet all of those requirements in our newly revised shoreland ordinance. There are adequate density determinations in the tiers of this property. It does require that 50% of the open space or of the parcel be retained as open space. This development is proposing 53% being retained, and it also requires 70% of the shore impact zone, which is 50% of the ordinary high water line setback, be preserved. Because of that 100-foot riparian buffer, 100% of the shore impact zone will be preserved in this development. There is some double-fronted lots in the block on the farthest northwest side of the development. The applicant is proposing to meet the buffer planting requirements on those lots, and there is a berm included in the rear yards of all of those homes along Block 1. During preliminary plat, staff had expressed some concerns with potential future impacts when and if Marsh Lake Road is ever expanded as a county road, and I think we've worked through all those issues, so it, the berm should not be a future impact. With the city's tree replacement ordinance, this development in the current trees on site is required to replace 175 caliper inches or approximately 58 3-inch trees. The applicant is proposing to plant 1,098 caliper inches or approximately 366 3-inch trees, though that does meet the replacement ordinance as well as the subdivision and boulevard tree planting ordinance. It includes 84 lot trees, 92 boulevard trees, 154 trees along the berm, and 36 additional trees. Staff has also requested that the lot trees on the lots that are adjacent to Marsh Lake, both of them be in the rear yards to provide some additional screening along the shoreline and replace some of the trees that have been removed in that area. This is just a general overview of the landscape plan. So you can see it's a little tough to see on the screen, but all of the circles indicate trees, larger circles indicate trees being planted. The comprehensive plan does not call for a park on this property as we discussed during the preliminary plat process. Thus staff would be requesting that park dedication be paid in fee in lieu of land. Based on the number of homes, this requires 1.96 acres of parkland dedication or equal to $205,800 in park dedication fees. As was noted in your background packet, staff is proposing a reduction of approximately $121,800 based on a credit for that large amount of right-of-way that's being provided for future Marsh Lake Road expansion. So that would equate to the total proposed parkland dedication fee to be paid by the developer of $84,000. And as I noted, the applicant is also proposing that 1.79 acre HOA owned park in the center of the development. Trails and sidewalks, this is identical to what you saw during preliminary plat, an 8-foot bituminous trail between the two blocks in the development, as well as 6-foot concrete sidewalk on one side of all of the local streets. Access and the roadways is also identical to what you saw in preliminary plat. Lakeside Drive will be a full access into the development. Shoreview Point will be a full access as well until such point, if and when Marsh Lake Road is expanded as a county road, then it is intended that that will be a right-in, right-out only, and that disclosure has been included in the HOA documents and in the letter of interest that the city includes in the DA, so that purchasers will be aware of that potential change in the future. All local streets are also to be built to city standards with 60-foot right-of-way. I mentioned the large amount of right-of-way being provided for that future Marsh Lake Road, so you can see that highlighted in red. This is based on the preliminary layouts that had been provided for Marsh Lake, so includes enough space for new roadway and right-of-way and boulevard and that sort of thing along that road. This area is within the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, so it's subject to their rules on stormwater. They are continuing to finalize their plans related to sewer water and stormwater. Those final plans will be required prior to recording the development. As we noted during preliminary plat, utilities will be stubbed to the adjacent property lines to accommodate potential future development to the east and west. I missed this on the Planning Commission, and I forgot to take this bullet out too. There is no further discussion required on pond access. That's a holdover from the prelim plat slide, so I apologize. Like I said, I caught it at Planning Commission and then forgot to take it out of this presentation as well. Pond access is good. And then there is additional capacity included for future expansion of Marsh Lake Road in the stormwater ponding. That was another question that came up during preliminary plat. And the applicant had reworked their calculations and their ponding so that those ponds on site can accommodate future roadway expansion. As was noted previously, there were a couple of public comment concerns, one being with hunting access through the now to be city-owned outlot and public land. Had some conversations with City Attorney Vos, who has indicated that the city can restrict access to that outlot if they choose. Likely what the city would end up doing is posting that for no hunting or no hunting access through that development. And then, as was provided to you earlier today, there was a request from a resident, Laketown Township resident on the south side of Marsh Lake, for more or larger trees along the Marsh Lake boundary. So with all of those things, staff is recommending approval of the final plat, comp plan amendment, as well as the zoning ordinance to RSPUD, with a few conditions. That final approval of the proposed comprehensive plan amendment be a condition of that final plat approval, which we anticipate to get soon from the Met Council, addressing to the city's satisfaction the remaining engineering comments and getting those final construction plans approved by staff, entering into a development agreement with the city and paying all applicable fees and providing required financial guarantees. The DA was included in your background packet as well. Final approvals from the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, including the inclusion of the entire 100-foot riparian buffer as a designated wetland buffer, complying with all of the RSPUD district standards established, complying with all requirements of the city attorney's plat opinion, submitting and recording HOA docs and covenants, disclosing and recording a letter of interest that outlines the items that we talked about related to Shoreview Point right-in, right-out, future through street extensions, as well as proximity to Marsh Lake Hunt Club. Complying with all applicable requirements, reviews, and approvals of city staff for that monument sign through the signage ordinance, recording of the final plat within 120 days, and then furnishing the city with a certified Mylar copy of the plat evidencing filing. And with that, Mayor, members of the council, that concludes my presentation. We do have John Sonic with Charles Cudd in the audience if you have any questions for him.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Dahl. Good work. That's come along nicely. Council, questions for Mr. Dahl or Mr. Sonic? Councilmember Black.
Have you discussed with the developer about the additional trees that the resident had asked about?
Yeah, Councilmember Black, Mayor, members of the council, we've talked quite a bit about trees in this development as we've been moving forward. One of the items that staff had recommended and the applicant did include was the inclusion of that additional lot tree in the rear yard to provide 2 rear yard lot trees along the line. I did forward the comments to the developer earlier today related to additional tree planting in that area along the shoreline. But we haven't had any further conversation on that specific request.
Thank you. Councilmember Black, anything else?
Have we talked about a crosswalk to get to Lakeside? Talked about that?
Yeah, we've got that included, right, Kara? Yeah.
Yes, it's included in the plans.
Yay. Okay. And then with this addition, are there enough homes now that we have warrants to lower the speed limit or no?
Ms. Geheren, that sounds like
Councilmember
yours.
Black, Mayor, members of the City Council, I have not given that any thought, so we'll review that and report back.
Okay, thank you.
It's 35 through a portion of the road, so the question relates to the rest of the road.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah, we need to slow it down.
Right.
Okay, that's it.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Council, any other questions?
Just
Councilmember Gunderson.
How far away is the property that we're discussing that's across the lake? Is it directly across the lake, or is it more towards the west side of the property?
It's entirely across Marsh Lake. I don't know if I know the exact distance of the lake from that. I don't know if, John, if you know how far it is exactly.
Mr. Sonic, why don't you come up to the microphone so our friends at home can hear your comments?
John Sonic with Charles Cook Company. It would be, if you went directly across, he would be farther west than us, even than our westerly lots. So he sits all the way up against County Road 43, and the lake still goes out around to the west from where we are. And that's,
I'm pulling it up on a map here so you can see.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you, Mr. Sonic.
So the development parcel is this parcel here, and then the property is this parcel down here along 43.
Okay.
And he does, what is his concern? He just doesn't want to see the development?
That's my understanding, yes.
That's what he's told me.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Councilmember Gunderson, anything
There to
else?
there.
It, based on GIS, it's about 2,000 feet from property line to property line.
So almost a mile.
Okay.
Half a mile. Right.
Any other questions? Comments? Council? Terrific. With that, I will take a motion.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2021-69 approving submittal of a comprehensive plan amendment to the Met Council. Also, adopt a Resolution 2021-70 approving the final plat for the shores of Marsh Lake. And where also adopt ordinance number 455, ZC zoning shores of Marsh Lake to residential shoreland planned unit development, as well as adopt Resolution 2021-71 authorizing summary publication of the ordinance.
Council, before we move on, is this one motion or do we want these taken in separate?
I would like them separate, but I can put him as made the motion for each one.
Okay, terrific. Can we have a universal second on all of those motions?
Mayor, you're the
Attorney Bose?
parliamentarian. That works for me. That's, I think
right.
you should take 4 votes, though, then.
We should
Four
take
votes?
You should take 4 votes. Yeah, I
Okay.
think the city wants to reflect this.
Okay, sure, certainly. Okay. So we have a motion on, or we have a motion on all of those motions. Can I get a second on all of those motions?
Second.
Thank you. So we're going to take these one by one. All in favor of all in favor of motion number 1, adopting resolution 2021-69, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All in favor of adopting resolution 2021-70, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All in favor of adopt ordinance number 455, 2Z zoning shores, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All in favor of adopt resolution 2021-71, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Ms. Patno, did you get all of that captured? Perfect, thank you. There are no more items to come before the body this evening. Let's go on to reports and emerging issues. Attorney Vos, anything from you?
I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just to point out, we do have new artwork in the chambers. And so our artwork is brought to us by various artists from the Lake Country Pastel Society. And that's it
All right.
from staff.
Terrific. And so we say to the public listening, don't hesitate during City Hall hours to come in and view this beautiful art. It is public art and it's here for your viewing. Council, anything from council to report? Councilmember Gunderson.
Just have one thing, if Kara's still in the room, thank you for the response, Ms. Shesso. Appreciate it. And two, I did find her response about one thing off, not related to her original email, a little concerning, which would be the public is noticing our lack of servicing from our law enforcement. So I think that's picking up in urgency, and I think something that should stay at the top of our mind. When we're getting emails that come from the public that say, we're noticing fewer patrols, or we just don't notice our patrols as often, that's to me signaling a public problem. So let's keep it at the top of our mind, if I can say that.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Gunderson. Anything else from council? Councilmember Black.
I just had a question. in the social media, Public Works had stated that they wanted you to keep your trash cans off the streets because they're doing street cleaning right now. And that's great. I have a problem because my yard and driveway are too steep. Everything would fall over. Is there a way to work with the trash haulers to coordinate your times for street cleaning, or is that something that make it a little easier?
Ms. Patno? Be tough.
We need to talk to Public Works probably.
Yeah.
All right. Councilmember?
I'm sorry. Thank you,
Ms.
Mayor.
Hardy?
Councilmember Black, members of the council. One of the complicating factors on this is that we share a street sweeper with other communities. And so we're not always certain when the timing is when we're going to have that here in our city. And then, of course, it's always dependent on when those leaves start falling. So it changes from year to year. So I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm not sure there's a solution for that, or at least an easy solution for that, but we'll certainly take that back to Public Works and see if that's something that we can work with.
Yeah, because, I can't be in compliance with that request. I mean, I've tried, and it all falls over. So, and I'm not the only home that has a steep drive or a steep yard. So it's just something to think about.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right.
Anything else, council? I have one thing to bring before the council tonight. I received a phone call. The Minnewaska Parkway stoplight along Highway 5 is a temporary stoplight, and it's due to come down in a couple of weeks. Our neighbors to the east, Chanhassen, and I think our residents as well have found that stoplight to be very helpful in mitigating some traffic and making safety issues. So I would like to get your consent to ask staff to write a letter to see if we can keep that stoplight in place. The idea is that the stoplight was going to be there temporarily, it'd be taken down, and then be brought back sometime within the next 3 to 5 years. What I'd like to have staff do is write a letter to MnDOT asking them to keep that in place for the duration of that until we can get that thing made permanent, the temporary stoplight kept in place.
Yeah,
And if everyone is in favor of doing that, I would like to ask staff to write that letter on our behalf. Looks like everybody is in compliance with that. Terrific. And then the last thing I would just note is that the House Bonding Committee was out to take a look at 82nd Street. I want to thank Councilmember Gunderson who joined that delegation to meet the bus out there to take a look at that. So we are hopeful that our bonding request will be considered in the upcoming legislative session, and we have written many, many letters to that effect to that committee. So if anyone who's listening in the public is compelled to do so, to write the bonding committee, House Bonding Committee, in support of that project, we would be grateful for that as well.
They like phone calls too.
They love phone calls and emails. Terrific. All right. With that, that is the end of it. There are no more items to come before us this evening, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Terrific. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.